So I've been wanting to talk to you for a little while now. I've been seeing you online since you're about 12, playing like the Crossroads drill and Van Halen and stuff like that. Very impressive.
I spend way too much time with the guitar in my hand. Yeah.
So how old were you when you started playing?
About 8. Started just sort of the story is that my dad was away for an extended period of time.
Mm-hmm.
And he had guitars around and I started picking the guitars up and playing them. And he tried to teach me over FaceTime, but my mum got really annoyed at that. So she just said, I'll just get a teacher. And I got a teacher and I started to play, and I just my playing grew a lot quicker back then than it does now. Now It sort of feels like it grows in the songwriting, but the playing, not so much.
So you said you started getting lessons quite young as well. Was that with Simon Gardner?
No, not with Simon yet. Simon I started lessons with when I was about 9.
So what did you start playing when you first, like what type of songs were you playing at first?
The first song I learnt was an AC/DC one, and then the first solo I learnt was Bohemian Rhapsody.
Wow.
And yeah, after a bit of time, it just sort of all fell into place for me to learn those 2 solos. Like I saw the Queen movie, and a video of AC/DC playing Thunderstruck went viral around the same time as I started playing.
Yep.
And then after that, after I saw the Queen movie, I thought I really want to learn that solo. So I took my guitar and I spent a couple of hours just trying to get the first few notes.
Yeah. And you just worked it out yourself by ear?
I found a few YouTube tutorials here and there, but some of them, they don't explain it in a way that makes sense. The one that I use, like if I need to learn a song really quickly, Guitar Lessons 365 on YouTube, I just look up a tutorial for any song and he practically has a tutorial for every song.
Cool. And what was your first guitar? What did you start playing on?
I started playing on a Yamaha Pacifica,
nice.
But that was my dad's.
Yeah.
And my first real guitar was after my dad thought my mum went crazy at one point because she took me into a guitar store and we were like, I need a different guitar. And I'd been researching Les Pauls, and there was this Les Paul that was half price because of the color, and it plays great. I still love that guitar. I've got it here. Yeah, it sounds really, really good.
Yeah.
And after I got that guitar, my playing just went because I was practicing more because it felt so good to play.
Isn't it amazing?
Yeah.
The difference a good sounding feeling guitar makes. I know I'm always buying new guitars and people are like, what do you need another one for? It's like, well, I'm bored with these ones and this makes me want to sit around and play, right?
Yeah.
Cool. So you said it was half price because of the colour.
Yeah.
What colour was it?
Do you want me to grab it?
If you want, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
That's not that bad.
Yeah, but it was half price because there was cracks all over the finish.
Because there was cracks in it?
Yeah.
Well, custom shops charge you more for that.
I don't know why I didn't sell for twice the price.
Yeah.
All over it.
So I imagine Les Paul would have been better for your small little hands then, huh?
Yeah, it definitely was. And I really liked the really big neck. Because on mine, it's a studio, so it's sort of big, but it's sort of kind of skinny at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
It's a little bit thicker than I'd say your normal Strat neck, but it feels really good to play. And the fretwork, I needed it fret dressed after 6 months of playing it.
Oh, really? Did you wear it out that quick?
Yeah. So
for you, was guitar like your obsession? Once you discovered it, you just went, this is all I want to do.
Yeah, that was the sort of thing was like I'm autistic and I have different special interests.
Yep.
The only special interest that has been consistent and one I think will never go away is music.
Yep.
Ever since I was really, really young, I loved music. Went to school, got violin lessons. That made me hate music for a few years.
I can understand why.
Pretty much. Yeah, they tried to get me to read music, but I can't read music. I'm not dyslexic, but I find the notes sort of move around on the page when I try to read them.
Sure. I'm trying to learn as well. I go to university. That was a big part, was having to learn to read music, and all the people around me just like, yeah, but I'm like, yeah, I'm not real good at this. And I've got to every line sort of go, every good boy just, oh, that's a D. And everyone else seems to be able to go, yeah, that just goes up a third or whatever, but not me. I'm a bit silly. But so you said you got other special interests as well that come and go. What have been some of those over the years?
So I used to do a lot of dance, but I didn't enjoy the strictness of it.
Yeah.
Like you had to wear this dress, you had to wear this tutu, or all of that sort of stuff. It just drove me out of that. So I then went to like a circus group for a while, and I went around there, and it was sort of like dance. But recently my special interests have been 3D printing and 3D modeling.
Yep.
And cubing, so solving Rubik's Cubes really fast.
I have no idea how to solve one. I looked it up and I haven't touched it since. Is there when you're doing cubing, what's the secret? Do you just see it differently to other people? Or?
Do you want me to show you?
Yeah, please.
So what I see is I just see different things that need to be moved into different places. And I see I have to make a cross, I have to make these edges. And then not very fast at it anymore.
I'm just amazed that you can do it. Just like that, huh?
Well, yeah. At one point I was able to do blindfold solving, but if you don't do that for a while, your memory, because you have to remember each sequence of each letter, because they assign a letter to all the pieces on the cube. You have to remember each sequence, and that is really taxing on your brain. After doing it, you'll feel really, really tired. And I've only ever done one successful blind solve. Yeah. But it's very taxing. So I stopped doing it because it just wasn't really for me.
I couldn't imagine doing that blindfolded.
Yeah, memorize where all the pieces go, and it's fun sometimes.
Yeah. Wow. So you said when you were playing violin that it almost put you off music.
Oh,
Did you get anything out of playing the violin? Is there any positives to that?
The one positive is that in one of my tracks, I had a part where I needed a little bit of a violin sound, so I still had the violin bow, so I used that on a guitar. Yeah. And I got it was really, really faint in the background. I can't remember which track it's on, but that's the only positive of it. It was one tiny little layer in one track.
Yeah, right. So it didn't really translate over to guitar when you went over, because it's tuned differently, isn't it?
And it's got no frets, so.
Do you have perfect pitch?
I do.
Or do you have a really good sense of relative pitch?
I'm not sure exactly which one it is. Yeah. I can hear a note and sometimes be, oh, that's a C, that's a D, but sometimes my ADHD, when my meds aren't working, I am really not that great at that sort of stuff, so I can't hear it. Yep. And I can't think of the note, but when my meds are working, I can pretty much hear it and then think of the note.
So, I asked you that because I have a pretty good sense of relative pitch. So if I work out what key we're in, I can hear, oh, yeah, that's the one chord. Oh, we just went to the 6. Oh, down to the 4. Oh, we had a flat 7 there. Do you hear like that?
I hear sometimes the scale degree number, and then sometimes I can hear the note name, but I'm really bad at hearing multiple note names within succession. I can hear it's an A minor arpeggio, but I can't hear what each note is usually.
Yeah. Cool. So did things really start to sort of take off for you when you started seeing Simon for lessons? Was that a big stepping stone?
Yeah, Simon has been the most consistent force of helping me play guitar. He is just he is a virtuoso, and every time I see him play, I think I got to practice more. And he's really helped guide me through songs writing songs, and he did a few jazz tunes with me. And the other thing is, when I first went to him, he was like, so your fingers are moving really fast, but there's no music there. He was like, it's just fingers moving really fast and notes really fast. And then he was like, so you need to be, so when I first went, I was like this, I was playing with my finger pads.
Yeah.
And then he really drilled into me that I need to
play more with the tips. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, he drilled that into me, and that has helped me so much over like the years I've been playing. Everything Simon's done has just added to where I am.
Yep.
So I'm very happy to have him as a teacher.
Yeah, I think he's one of the best rock players in Queensland. And I first saw Simon playing when I was probably about 18 years old, 17, 18 years old. He just went to GIT, the Guitar Institute of Technology, and he came back and he did a guitar clinic. And that was the first time I saw somebody up close playing a lot of 3-note per string, kind of playing with just that flow that gives you, the legato, and just think, oh my God, there's somebody actually doing that right in front of me. It was amazing. And I've sort of kept up with what he's been up to over the years, but I was really impressed. I went and saw him play at a record release or something. Geez, this could have been, how long ago? Almost 10 years ago, he put out a solo record. And the thing that impressed me the most was I knew that he could absolutely shred, but I'd watched him play through about 3 or 4 songs before he even let go of the beast. He was just playing melodically, as if to say, yeah, I can do that fancy stuff, but listen to me play some beautiful stuff. And that really, I just respect. It was like a lot of people go, listen, look how fast I can play.
Yeah. And he has always, another thing that's drilled into me is to try and play melodically. So when I first started, he'd take me back to basics and say, just play one note.
Sure.
And then he said, showed me how to add the notes and how to then link them. And I'm very grateful for him.
Cool. So what type of things were you learning first up in terms of navigating the fretboard? Did you learn like the caged system or?
I don't use caged. I know the caged system and I know the arpeggios, but after a while, the caged system sort of boxes you in just like it. So the caged system sort of claims to elevate you out of the pentatonic scale, but then the same thing is it's just a bigger box and a different shaped box. Like the pentatonic is a little square box and the caged system is a little circular box.
Yep.
And I feel like what Simon did was he taught me all of it. He taught me 3-note per string. He taught me the just standard like.
Yep.
And taught all of that and helped me put it all together. And that was really helpful. I think first he taught me the cage system. Yep. And he once said, if you ever ask a piano player, can you play something in the cage system? They'll be like, where's the cage? Is it like a dog crate or something?
Yeah. I absolutely agree. Having to learn 5 different shapes that aren't related just doesn't make sense to me. Instead, I will learn it on 2 strings, slide up 2 frets and then move it over to the next 2 strings. You know what I'm saying? Sort of in smaller cells. And that just made a lot more sense to me than all these big shapes and things. So it sounds like you might be taking the same approach.
Yeah, I sort of don't like recently I tried to relearn the pentatonic scale because I had learned it, but I had learned it really poorly. So I tried to relearn it, but then when I started playing, I felt boxed into it. So then I had to unlearn that sort of and then try to get back into the sort of 3-note per string caged combination of all of those things.
Sure. Do you remember what the first thing you learnt to play that was a bit of a showstopper that made people go, oh my God?
That's a hard one. When I was really young, I tried to learn the Dragon Force thing. My hands were like half the size they are now.
Yeah.
It did not work. But the first thing I actually sort of learned that I was able to play coherently was the eruption tapping part.
Yep.
And that I learnt tapping through that. And then I can't remember who it was. I think it was Stevie T. One point, when I was starting playing, I watched his tutorial on sweep picking.
Yep.
And it was actually really good content, just with a lot of nonsense that he does in it. But it taught me the basics of it, but I wasn't sweep picking properly. I was sort of just playing the arpeggio. I wasn't muting the strings. But it taught me sort of different ways around all kinds of things. So I think that is probably the best answer to that question.
Cool. Okay. I met Stevie T. I went to NAMM about 5 years ago, and I was waiting in line to meet somebody, and he was just sitting down at a table next to me, and I looked at him and said, "Oh, wow, I've got a student that's a big fan of yours. Can I get a photo?" And he was just really quiet kind of dude, not at all like his persona on the channel.
Yeah.
And it was just very quiet and mellow, almost shy. And then as soon as the camera came out, that's when he immediately went, and pulled the face and became Stevie T that we see on the screen. So it's funny how people can be different when they're off camera as opposed to when the cameras are on them.
Yeah,
so
I've seen that with a few different people.
Yeah. So speaking of that, you've played with quite a few cool people in your young years as well. Who's some of the players that you've played with?
Do you mean on stage?
Yeah, on stage.
Anywhere?
Yeah.
So on stage, Ash Grunwald and Larry Mitchell at the Gympie Muster.
Yep.
That was, I felt really undersized for how big, and these players seem larger than life to someone like me who's sort of just starting the journey. And it was a lot of fun and really sort of, it opened my eyes to the different kinds of styles. Like Ash was like, pull it back a little bit. And I was like, oops, I went too hard, too quick. But yeah, that was a really fun. And then I played with John Foreman at Elevate the Stage in Sydney. And he is an amazing keyboard player.
Who was some of the players that you were getting into when you first started?
Brian May was definitely one of the first ones. I saw him live at Suncorp.
Yep.
In 2020, and it was when COVID was just starting, and we got COVID from being in Suncorp and being in a big line.
Yeah.
But the doctors wouldn't really diagnose it then. But yeah, Brian May, Randy Rhoads was definitely the biggest one.
Really?
About 6 months into my playing, I was absolutely idolizing Randy Rhoads and trying to play just like him and sound just like him. And yeah, he was the hugest inspiration to me. And I can never feel like he's given me nothing to do, because a lot of players go around and say, oh, his double tracking isn't that good. But for me, it was the way he wrote solos, the way he sounded, the way he worked. It just really intrigued me, and he was the biggest influence.
Yeah,
but
right.
I was just thinking back to the start, and then I thought, oh, Randy.
Yeah. So speaking of Brian May, I used to play in a Queen tribute band. I was Brian May, and I used to put on the wig. And man, he's got some really nice melodic stuff. I had to learn to play it all note for note. I'd slow things down and everything, and get his touch and his feel down. And what a sound! He's very unique. You can tell it's him straight away.
Yeah. And his sound, like him and Randy, they were the two biggest inspirations for me.
Yep.
And then in about 2022, I got a Frankenstrat from EVH, refretted it recently and just tweaking it to be better. But yeah, and that was my main guitar for 2 years, pretty much, until the start of, not 2 years, about a year until the start of 2023.
I've got a black EVH. I don't know if you can see it on the wall.
I can see it.
Yeah. I'm going to put a pickguard on that and wire in neck and middle pickup and everything, but I love the neck on that. I've come to really like it. It's got that nice, speedy kind of neck, nice rounded edges, but not too thin. Some, like Ibanez Gem and all that wizard neck can be a little bit too thin.
I prefer the Ibanez's that I use. I prefer the Ibanez Wizard 3-neck or the one on the Joe Satriani models. The neck on the Joe Satriani models is really comfortable to play, and it just sort of melts into your hand, it feels like.
Yeah. I've seen you playing that a lot, and you got a Sustainiac in that, right?
Yeah. It is like ever since like someone lent me a JS and I tried it and I played it at a gig, I think. And yeah, after that, I was like, I wrote a song with it using the Sustainiac. And I was like, I think I need one of these.
Yeah.
And I was very fortunate that I was able to get one.
I've got a guitar. I'm very small in my monitor up there somewhere. I think it's that one, a Hamer, that's got a Sustainiac in it. And I've had that since 1991. So I've had it for a long time. And that was my secret weapon. I'd flick the switch and not many people knew about them. And everyone's like, how's your control of feedback and everything? I'm like, yeah, how's my control of feedback? And not telling them I'm just flicking a switch.
I used to try to do the Carlos Santana feedback trick.
What's that?
It's where you walk around the room, play a specific note, turn your body in multiple angles, and then try and find the one where it resonates the best, and then mark that with tape. I did that, but it was just, it didn't sound as good as a Sustainiac, and it didn't sustain anywhere near as long as a Sustainiac. So like the Sustainiacs, you just have to wait till the battery dies, and yeah. But this, it was like a 10-second sustain. But yeah, I've tried all of those sort of sustain tricks, and I've used a couple EBOs, and yeah, the only thing that I've found really works for that is the Sustainiac. And then you've got the harmonic switch, which just sounds, it just turns it into a monster, basically.
Yeah. It's nice to hold a note, have it down on the fundamental first, and then flip it to one of the harmonics, and then flip it to a different harmonic. And that's what I said. Everyone was looking at me going, how's your control of feedback? I'm like, yes, magic, switch. And I've seen Steve Vai when he uses his Fernandez sustainer, and he pretends to do stuff with his tongue, but you're watching and he's actually flipping the switch on his Sustainiac sustainer to get the different harmonics and things. And
I saw him in Brisbane, and he blew on the guitar and flicked the Sustainiac switch, and then that was a great experience seeing him.
Yeah, I went to the one. That was the one at Fortitude Music Hall. Yeah. Fantastic. His guitar sound was amazing. His showmanship. He's Steve Vai. What can you say?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Someone went to the Vai Academy and took a Cortex and captured his entire rig.
Really?
Yeah. So
nice.
I've got that on the quad, and I use that sometimes. It sounds massive. Like, however you think he sounds live, it sounds 10 times better when you're playing it alone. It just, and it does sustain for a long time, even without a Sustainiac. Yeah.
Awesome. So speaking of Steve Vai, one of the main head turners was seeing you play the Crossroads duel. How long did that take you to learn that?
Crossroads thing, I first started learning it in 2020 when Simon recommended I start it.
Yep.
And then after many years of trying to do it, like I spent about a month of like 3-hour practice days in the middle of COVID trying to get that the high. Yeah, I haven't played it for a while, but I remember spending a long time trying to get that, and I never got it. And then I revisited it after I got the Frankenstrat, and I was able to sort of play it. And then over time, I was able to actually play the Crossroads line, and I was really happy after I got it because I was just like, I feel like God.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So all people my age, and I'm 50, how old am I? 51. But all the people around my age, that was the pinnacle. If you could play that because we were all teenagers when that movie came out, and everyone's like, "Oh, the Crossroads Duel." And if you could play any of it, people's heads would turn. But to see you playing it when you were like 13 or something on YouTube, nailing it. I had Andy Wood. You know who Andy Wood is, the country shredder? Have you seen him?
Haven't seen him.
No. Okay. So Andy, he's got his own Sir signature model and everything. So he's from Nashville. He was world bluegrass mandolin champion when he was a teenager or something. So he's really good at the fast picking and all that. And then that translated to guitar. So he mainly plays country, but he can play all that kind of stuff. And when I had him on the show, before we went live, he was just sitting there warming up and he was playing the Crossroads Duel, and that was mind-blowing to see. My favorite part of watching somebody play that is when they're doing that octave jump thing and watching their head, sort of going, looking, preempting where they're about to jump to. Yeah. Would you say that's the hardest part, is getting that?
Yeah. After the little... After that little part, that is the hardest part of it.
Cool.
And I spent such a long time trying to get it. And I tried to do that on a Les Paul. And it was a nightmare because I couldn't reach up. And nowadays I've used neck through. My favorite one's a neck through.
Yep.
Sorry about that. But yeah, it just feels so much easier to access it, and it sort of feels like accessing the rest of the neck, but that made it considerably easier to play it than even on a Strat. So, yeah, I was very happy once I learned that and I could play it.
Nice. It's a bit of a bugger, isn't it, when your thumb hits that heel, especially on Strat-style guitars, and, it's a bit awkward. I tend to sculpt it away on some of mine. I've hacked it away. I know a lot of the higher end stuff, they come pre-sculpted, but I'm really keen to try. You know the Nuno Betancourt N4s, how they've got that extended cutaway? Yeah. I've always wanted to Strat with one of those.
Yeah.
I think that'd make getting up really high effortless.
Yeah, and really easy. They also look really good.
They do, don't they?
Yeah.
So you're using Ibanez guitars now. What was the attraction to Ibanez?
So when I first started, I obviously started on the Gibson, then I moved to the Frankenstrat, and then at one point I decided to try and play around with the Charvel. I played around with that. It is a great guitar. I went on the ABC talking about how good it is. But over time, the Floyd Rose 1000 system, because I was playing it so much and doing so many dive bombs, the Floyd Rose 1000 was burring and it was slotting out and then going out of tune. And that happened on stage. The first time it happened, in the middle of surfing with the Alien.
Always the way. It's probably a big crowd too, right?
Not really. It was at Norton's Music Factory. And then I gave it to the guitar tech, took Frankie and played a song with Frankie, and then he gave it back and said, I think it's all good. And then it did it again.
Oh.
So then I researched what the problem was, and then I learnt about the Ibanez edge bridge system, which uses knife edges instead of the blunt, instead of just sort of like that. It uses a knife edge, which just sits in a little groove. Yep. And that is much better because you can just... And it's all in tune.
Yeah.
And it just stays like that. And that's why I moved to Ibanez. And, yeah, they're a great company and their guitars have such good quality control. Like, there was another guitar of another brand. I'm not going to name the brand, but it had, it had green paint on it. And I went into the guitar store and I tried it and I played around with it. And then I lifted it up and the green paint had gone all over my black pants.
Wow.
And I was like, is this company's quality control really this bad? And it was really weird. The guitar store sent it back, but it was like leaking green paint.
I've never seen that before. It's like they didn't let it dry properly or something, huh? Just out the door.
It was really weird, but they sent it back. I haven't heard what happened to it. But yeah, that was another company I was considering looking at. But after seeing that, I was like, I've played a few Ibanez's now. apart from I'd played a few modded ones, really badly modded Ibanez's when I first started, and I didn't like Ibanez because they were really bad. They were really badly set up. They sounded hideous. But then after I had a look at an Ibanez AZ, I was like, this brand's actually really good. And yeah, I eventually found this one, which has the neck through. And yeah, the neck through is also much more stable on planes.
Yep. So what is that one? Is that a Prestige or I forget all the different ones, Premium?
It's a Premium, but it's basically sort of spec'd like a Prestige. I had a look at a Prestige, but I didn't think the specs were as good as this one. So eventually I chose this one. And yeah, I don't know why Ibanez didn't make it as a Prestige because it basically could be. Yeah.
I always get them confused. Is Prestige the Japanese ones and Premium's Korean?
Premium's Indonesian. Doesn't say. Indonesian. Premium's the Indonesian one, and then the standard, I think, is the Korean. And then they make the J Customs up in Japan in a different factory to the Prestige.
Okay. And you said you're a fan of the Wizard neck profile?
I like the Wizard 3 neck the most because it's not like crazy slim, but it still feels like it still feels fast to play, but it doesn't feel like it's a piece of paper and it's about to snap.
Sure. And so what are you using for amps these days?
So for a long time I've used the GT1000 and I'm still going to use that live because that thing is just, it is perfect the way it works live and how you can just, like, the sound guy comes up and sometimes you'll have the sound guy bring 2 XLRs or 1 XLR.
Yep.
And with the GT, it doesn't matter. Like, it sounds great mono or stereo. And yeah, I'm forever grateful for that. But recently in the studio, I started using Neural DSP plugins.
Yep.
And I first got the Tim Henson one for the nylon string. And it sounded really good. And then I experimented with a couple other plugins. And then eventually I gotten a Quad Cortex, which I'm going to use in the studio.
Yep.
And
you think you're going to use that live as well?
Not sure yet. The GT is just bulletproof live.
Is it? Does that have knobs on it instead of having to go through menus and things?
The Quad Cortex?
No, the GT1000.
GT, you have to go through menus.
You do? Okay.
Yeah.
Because I've had all the different modelers, Axe FX, Kemper. I've never had the Neural DSP though.
And the Neural DSP one, in my opinion, is the best modeler for studio work because it works seamlessly with the laptop. It, like with some other modelers I've tried, I've booted it up and then I've needed to spend a minute trying to connect the Bluetooth. And the Neural, I just open the app and it's connected automatically and it, like, you have to enter the Wi-Fi password on it. So I don't know what it's doing with my Wi-Fi, but...
Yep. Nice. Yeah, some of them, if you just need to make small changes on the fly, like your solo sound needs to be turned up, the sound guy say, I just need a half dB more or something. I remember having a Kemper and the way it was laid out on a dark stage with the lights, I couldn't see where anything was. And I just went, design fail. If I need to make this change right now and I can't see it because of the lighting, you guys didn't think this through in your design. So have you found that the Neural DSP is a lot easier to adjust things as you need it or the Boss one as well?
The GT and the Neural DSP are very easy to adjust. The reason I'm not sure about whether I'll use the Neural DSP or GT live. I'll need to test them both. But the Neural DSP, it's the foot switches and knobs.
That's right.
And then it's got a touch screen. So all you have to do is you have to go into the touch screen and, like, instead of having to go into a sub menu, the menu of your effects chain is just on the screen by default. So you can just press, and then they've got scene modes and all kinds of stuff I don't use, but I probably should be using. It just amazes me how quickly it is to navigate. Like, when I first got it, I pulled it up, like, a lot of the time with some modelers, not the GT. The GT's definitely not like this. But you'll pull up the first preset and you'll think, they need someone better to make their presets. The neural, if you're sort of like a rock blues player, the first preset's all you need.
Really?
It just sounds great. It's mapped out really well.
It's true what you say. I've encountered things over the years. My first good amplifier was the 80A MP1. Do you know those? That they were a tube preamp in a rack. I've got one back there somewhere. That you could store presets in, and it was like the new U-Butte thing back then. But the presets sucked. If you went into preset 1, 2, 3, it's like, who's going to use that? But if you took the time to program them, they sounded as good as a lot of the real amps getting around, and all the big players were using them in the late 80s. And but yeah, the presets, like, who thinks that's a good guitar sound?
Yeah. Sometimes I wonder who actually makes the sounds. Like, is it the developers trying to show off what the unit can do, or is it actual guitar players trying to make a good sound?
Mm-hmm. Hey, I saw that you're building a guitar.
Yeah, I am. I'm building a 62 Strat.
Nice.
When my dad's on long service leave because he works too many hours, I'll hopefully be able to convince him to keep building it with me. And we've just done the fretboard radiusing of the fretboard, and yeah, the body, we got it from this guy who just, like, he has wood out the front of his house, and you just go up to him and you say, oh, I want this wood. Apparently, because we got American Alder, apparently only 2 people a year buy American Alder for him.
Oh, really? And they're probably guitar builders.
Yeah, that's my thought, is that, I think I know who those people are.
Do you there's a lot of debate about tone wood. Some people say, oh yeah, the wood makes all this difference. Some people are like, it makes no difference because it's just electromagnetic things and all that. What are your thoughts on that?
Okay, I'll try and summarize them. So in like 2020 or 2021, there was a guy who went on YouTube, and I believe the videos were fake. But what he did was he took a guitar and then slowly stripped it of the components, and then at the end just put like across 2 tables, strings across 2 tables.
Yep.
And as Guthrie Govan said, the end of the tone wood debates pretty quickly when you realize that you can hear that through the amp. So tone wood must make a difference. In an acoustic guitar, makes a huge difference. Some people can't hear it in an electric guitar, but I can hear the different tones and the different sounds of different woods. So, yeah, that's sort of my stance, is that tone woods do make a difference. And I think a lot of people who say that they don't really need to invest more time into playing guitar than sparking online debates.
Do you think that extends into fingerboard wood as well?
I haven't had, like, most of the guitars I've had have been rosewood or ebony or maple. They're the sort of 3 woods that I really like the sound of. Personally, I prefer the sound of ebony to all of them. Like, this is an ebony fretboard. But sometimes it doesn't make a difference, but sometimes it makes a really big difference. Like, the fretboard is where the frets are, so it's where the notes sit. And that's got to make a difference, but it's sort of the degree of the difference that it makes. And a lot of people debate it makes little difference, and then some people say it makes a huge difference. I believe that depending on the wood, it's going to make a different amount of difference than it would.
Yeah. It's more of a feel thing for me, but I do prefer maple. For some reason, it sounds better than rosewood to my ears. It's got more of a snap about the note, just a bit more transient, that boom kind of at the start of the note. And I like the feel of ebony, and I think that sounds good as well. But there's other people that think it makes no difference. I have seen some videos where people compare different necks, and I'm can hear in that what my personal experience has been.
Yeah. And the thing about, like, rosewood is that there's different types of rosewood. Like there's Indian rosewood, and some of that rosewood, like some of the Indian rosewood is really dry. Like it almost looks like the color of your wall where the guitars are. It almost looks like that. And I just think, where did you get this wood that it's this unhealthy? Like, was it grown in a lab or something? But then like some really nice ones like Brazilian rosewood, which I've played on a 62 Strat, and I'm not sure, but I think this one is Brazilian rosewood. But it sounds really, really good, and it feels pretty much as smooth as ebony. It just has sort of like slightly different tonal sound.
Yeah. So the guitar that you're building, you said it's a 62 Strat. Is that through like a guitar building course somewhere? Did you? No.
My dad and I have done like. Do you mind if I grab another guitar he's built quickly?
Go for it.
Yeah. My dad and I have done some workshops of guitar building, and guitar maintenance and setup and repairs. And after those workshops, he gained a lot of knowledge. My dad gained a lot of knowledge about how to build a guitar from watching YouTube videos and all of that. And eventually, he ended up in a shoulder operation because he tore his shoulder ligament, and he saw someone on YouTube building a guitar with one arm. So he thought, while I've got the thing, it was a stupid idea, but he thought, while I've got my shoulder in the sling, I'll make a guitar with the other hand. And he's ADHD and completely impulsive all the time. He does a lot of things very impulsively, but this is the guitar. He didn't finish it while he had one hand. He finished it a little while ago, but the top is, I can't remember, red cedar, I think. And then the back is, I can't remember. But it's a very nice wood. It's the one that smells like lime.
Like lime? I don't know what that is.
Yeah, I can't remember exactly which wood it was, but yeah, and he made it, and I at first thought this isn't going to work. But then when he actually made it, when I played it for the first time, I thought, this is actually really good. And it's got P90s in it, and they're $20 P90s off Amazon. And
Really?
they sound better than I've tried a couple Les Paul Juniors in stores, and I've compared their P90s to the $20 Amazon ones. The $20 Amazon ones sounds superior, and
wow.
I don't know how they make them, but it just really works the way that they've done it.
Yep. And
it sounds really big, and yeah, it's just a really good guitar, and it's hollow body as well.
Do you use that guitar often?
Not often. I might have used it in one of the tracks I did a little while ago. I can't remember which one. Yeah, I've used all sorts of different guitars and all sorts of different tracks, but I might have used this one in a track. I think I used it as like an acoustic layer and mic'd it up.
So back to the 62 Strat that you're building. Why 62? Is that a particular reason you went for that model?
Well, my dream vintage guitar is a 59 Les Paul, but we don't have the skills to make a Les Paul, and we don't have the money if we get sued. So
think of the promotion. Think of the promotion. Yeah. If Gibson sued you, that would be everywhere and instant fame.
That would be so good. I'd be very happy if that happened. Apart from I wouldn't be able to pay the legal fees. But yeah, we decided on a 62 Strat because it's easier to build, and Strats are made to be built on assembly line sort of. So that's why we chose it, is we thought it would be easiest to build after he built the Telecaster. And yeah, I was thinking of putting a Vega trem. Do you know the Vega trems?
I do.
I was thinking of putting a Vega trem in it, but I had a look at them and I thought it doesn't really fit the 62 Strat. And yeah, he's going to paint his a blue color and mine's going to be an Olympic white, but like a vintage creamed version of it.
Like a Mary Kay Strat. Do you know what a Mary Kay Stratocaster is?
No.
No, look that up. That's like a transparent white burst, and you can just make out the ash underneath. I've always wanted one of those. They just look so cool.
Yeah.
What's the hardest thing about building a guitar so far?
The hardest thing about building a guitar, probably so far, there's a lot of different things. When we first cut the fretboards, we cut them wrong. So we wasted a bit of ebony and we had to fix that up, and we're still fixing that up at the moment. But yeah, the hardest thing that I think is going to be the hardest thing in the entire guitar build process is going to be the nitrocellulose lacquer, because that is just, it cracks at like the slightest tap pretty much. And I'm just a bit worried about that because it also says that it will take 6 weeks to finish. And I'm like, so we're going to have fumes in our garage for 6 weeks?
Or it might turn out like that green guitar that you said at the music store ended up all over your black pants.
Yeah.
Hey, you're releasing new music, and you've been, as far as I'm aware, writing and recording your own stuff for a while.
Yeah.
How did you get into that?
It first started when I got the GT1000, as I got it and I started recording with it on my parents' computer. And there was a lot of arguments because I wanted to be recording while they wanted to be using the computer for monitoring my socials and stuff. And I was like, but I really want to finish this recording. And eventually I got I got a cheap IKEA desk and put some stuff and put some wires together and made a sort of home studio, which is just KRK studio monitors, a MacBook, and the GT.
And what DAW are you using to record in?
I've tried all the main 3. I originally started using Ableton. And then I tried using GarageBand and I absolutely hated it. And then I tried using Pro Tools, and I'm not about to say I loved it. I'm about to say it was the worst experience that I've ever had. It made my computer crash so many times. I just absolutely hated using it because it was so slow. Like, I'd move my mouse and then 2 seconds later it would do this.
Yep.
So then I eventually tried Logic Pro, and I regret not starting on Logic Pro sooner, because I didn't start because I didn't like the GarageBand, but Logic is completely different to GarageBand. It's like a more complicated version of GarageBand, and it just is much better, and I use that for everything.
Cool. I've been using Pro Tools since the late 90s, and it's been a love-hate thing. Just anything you got to subscribe to, it's like, how many times do you want me to buy this? I've bought that program so many times, and then they're like, no, now you have to give us $20 a month or whatever. And
there was a metronome app Simon got me onto, and I used it for a couple of years, but now I went into the app a couple of weeks ago and it said you have to get a subscription. And you have to subscribe to it. And I was like, I already bought the app for $10. Oh, it was more than a couple of weeks ago. It was probably the start of last year. But I bought the app for $10 and it was really good. But then, now I've got to pay $5 a month for it. And I was like, I'm not paying $5 a month for a metronome that I paid $10 for.
Yep.
Yeah.
I've started slowly eliminating all the plugins that have gone to subscription as well in my Pro Tools, trying to use Logic more so because I've bought it and I own it and they're not going to hit me up for more money. Yeah, I don't believe in this whole subscription model thing. Just let me buy it.
Yeah. And it's sort of like if you went to a guitar store and you said, oh, can I buy that guitar? They'd say, no, you have to pay us $2,000 a year for it.
Yeah, I know. It'd be stupid, huh?
Yeah, but it's okay for the people in Silicon Valley to do it online.
Yeah. Hey, who are some of the players around now that you aspire to be able to play like?
Steve Vai definitely is a big inspiration to me. After seeing him live, I've just been like, how can I play like him but sound like me? But as well as that, Tim Henson of Polyphia.
Yep.
Like every time he remembers his YouTube password and uploads a video, if it's at 1 a.m., I wake up to watch it because I've got a notification thing set for his channel. But yeah, he is an amazing guitar player. And it sort of comes into an interesting thing Simon was talking about, where he said some people sound like they practice all day and then other people sound like they play all day. And like I'm trying to aspire to sound like someone who plays all day, who's got all the technical stuff, but I can still play music melodically and have soul instead of just sounding like a metronome that's got different pitches.
That's very good. Now, one thing I do love about Tim's playing is he gets inspiration not really from other guitar players, but from programming stuff and synth lines and going, how can I create that on guitar? And that's something I went down a few years back where I was into synthesizers before I was into guitars as a kid. And I used to just love the sound of arpeggiators on synth. And for ages, I was trying to recreate that with sweep picking, and it just wasn't right. It was only one octave, and I wanted to do bigger jumps. And then I discovered Paul Gilbert's string skipping style arpeggios. And it's like, that's it. That's the sound of a synthesizer but played on guitar that I've been trying to chase. And that's what I really like about Tim's playing is he programs stuff and then tries to work that out on guitar. And then that way he doesn't sound like everybody else that's still trying to sound like David Gilmour or Stevie Ray Vaughan, which thousands of people can do. Any other players out there that you're really digging?
John Petrucci, I really like his guitar tone. I've got his plugin, and that's my daily driver on Logic Pro. I just like every time I load up a Logic Pro session to start working on a new song, the first thing I do is I add Petrucci archetype, and like the default sound, I use the default sound on the track I sent you. I use the default sound for the rhythm on that track, and I was really impressed at, like, when I first booted it up, at how good the default sounded. Like we were talking with the Quad Cortex and the different, and like the Kemper, and how sometimes the presets aren't that good, but yeah, it just really impressed me. So he inspires me as well. Larry Mitchell is a big inspiration. I always try to play with the same soul he does, because he just, every note of his playing is just, it just has the right amount of emotion, and yeah, it really interests me, and it makes me strive to want to play like him. That's
awesome. So are you working on an album that's coming out, or are you just releasing singles?
I'm working on an album called My Eyes, about the way I view the world from my eyes. And something I really don't like about the way music operates nowadays, and the way Spotify cannibalizes all the money from streams, is that it encourages people to release an album every 5 years. And like for 5 years, it's radio silence. You hear nothing from them. But what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to write an album, and I'm trying to get the album finished by the end of 2025, hopefully. It might be the middle of 2026 by the time I get it, or the end of 2027 for all I know. But I'm trying to release each song as a single while I'm compiling them all in the album. And then when I release the final song, it will be the album.
Cool. So when on the album, are you programming all the backing yourself? Or do you get live musicians? How are you doing all that? I mean, you're obviously playing guitar on it, but I know when I'm doing production work, I program my drums. And
I use Easy Drummer to start off with as just a bass. Like Simon helps me a lot with the writing. The thing is, when I write, I sort of get narrow-eared, and I get stuck on this one idea, and I spend 2 hours, 3 hours, 4 hours on this one idea, just trying to get the synth part right. And then I add so many layers, and then I've got that part, but I don't have a song. I've just got that part. So Simon has always tried to make sure that I write the framework of the song first. So get all the chords mapped out and everything. And he recommended Easy Drummer, which I use for the framework. when I can get it to work. And then I send it off to, I've got a producer in Italy, Alberto Rigoni. He is a very nice guy. I played on a track in one of his albums. And yeah, I send a track off to him with just guitar. And then he sends it back, and like the track we're probably about to hear, I sent that to him as just the guitars, and then he sent it back with the bass and then the synth, and then he sent it back with the drums, and he mixes and masters it. So then I suddenly got the master, and I was like, this has just made the song feel alive. Like with the guitar, the song sort of feels like dead. It sort of is a bit like dead coral. It sort of is there. It sort of has room to breathe and has room to sort of look good. So after I send this song to him, he just makes it feel, he just puts all the color in it, and it just feels so alive.
What's the favorite song of yours that you've written?
The Storm. That's the one that I haven't released yet. If you want, I can list the tracks that are going to be on the album. But the Storm is my favorite track of all of them because I just like the way that it moves and it sounds. Like, it just feels like I said earlier, it feels alive. So it sort of feels like it moves around. And yeah, I'm really, really happy with that track.
Nice. Hey, you've done some pretty cool gigs. I saw you playing the pub choir at River Stage.
Yeah.
And that was amazing to have thousands of people all jumping up and down while you're playing the Bohemian Rhapsody and stuff. What's is that your favorite gig you've ever played, or have you got other ones? That one was?
That's my favorite gig I've ever played. Like, Astrid is such an amazing person, and like off stage, she's such a very kind person and very helpful person, and always tries to make sure that I'm comfortable. And yeah, that is my favorite gig I've ever done. If I could relive one moment of my life, it would be that moment.
Nice. Well, it's a good thing that it was captured on video.
I would really like to play in more pub choir gigs because they are just like, I feel it just, like I was saying earlier, I keep referencing this, but it just feels like with the audience singing and everything, it just feels so alive, and it feels like the music, something Simon's always drilled into me, is that the music is larger than anyone. All of the musicians combined, the music is larger than all of us. And we always try to serve the music, and we need to keep going with that sort of track. And pub choir, it sort of feels like we're all serving the music, and it just is always such a great time.
Wow, that's awesome. Smart guy, that Simon, isn't he? He knows a thing or two.
Yeah.
Hey, what are you using for picks and strings and things?
So for strings, I use Elixir OptiWebs. The way that Elixir OptiWebs feel, they just feel like the most natural string to me. Like, I use 9-42s because I used to use 10s, and at one point I had a pack of 11s that was on one of my guitars, and that just hurt my hand. That after playing that, it just really, really hurt my hand, and I ended up with hand injuries, and I had to go to a physio to get it sorted out. But someone recommended I try lighter strings, and at first I used an Ernie Ball 9-46 Super Slinky, but they're great, but I found that they rusted and sounded really dull. So then I switched to the Elixirs, and I've had them on guitars for like 12 months, and the strings are not rusty. They're still perfect. And that's just my favorite string. And the OptiWebs, they sort of feel like a coated string, but they also feel like a normal string. And then for picks, now I'm using these Grover Almond ones. Focus. Please focus. They've got a little bird on them.
Yeah. Nice. And are they quite stiff, or do you use something a bit flexier?
They're in the middle. So they're sort of in the middle of a Jazz 3 and sort of like a standard 1mm blue pick. And then the other picks I use are these ones, which are 0.88mm. These are Grover Almond as well.
Yeah.
And they've got my logo on it as well. I've got a new batch of these with a new logo shipping soon, which I'm excited about.
You've got the logo of the bird on there, and you call yourself JayBird. Why the name JayBird?
Yeah. JayBird's my actual name.
Is that
it's
your real
on my
name?
birth certificate. Yeah, it's my real name. On my birth certificate, it says JayBird. My parents named me that because their middle names both start with the J,
Yeah.
and they wanted me to be free, so they named me because they thought my mum, she did organ at school, and she did it all the way up to the grade 8, and my grandma made her do that, and she absolutely hated it and hates music now. Apart from listening to music, she hates playing music because of that. So her idea was when she wanted me to be free, so she thought the freest thing that there is a bird, so that's why they named me JayBird.
That's awesome. I thought it was a nickname.
Yeah. The thing I want to do most in life is to express myself instead of just expressing my interpretation of what other people have expressed. So that's my goal in music, in my music, is to be able to express myself and explain the world from where I am and try and put it into music that other people can listen to and hopefully enjoy, because some of the demos I've got are pretty bad, but the music I put out, I try to make sure that it's good.
Keep doing that, because anybody can copy other people, but what's going to make you stand out and get a name for yourself is your music. So good on you for that.
Yeah. Thank you very much for having me on the show.
Thank you.
When I saw Simon's, I saw that years ago, and I was really interested, and I was really happy when I saw that. And to be on one myself is just, I just feel really, really, euphoric about it.
That's awesome. And I wish you all the luck in the future. Like I said, I'm so impressed that somebody so young is writing their own music as well as has the chops to play all the things that grown-ups like me wish they could play, but there's you doing it. So keep doing it. Keep doing it.
Yeah. Thank you.